There are some industries that blockchain makes more sense for than others, and one of these is supply chain and all the tracking needed to make sure goods get from point A to B to C to D and so on. In this episode, we welcome John Monarch and Brian D. Evans of ShipChain.io to the show to discuss their new venture and how they intend to impact a multi-trillion-dollar industry. In the news, we'll talk about how a glitch caused some people in Japan to almost get free Bitcoin. And while the economy in Venezuela continues to collapse, their new state-run cryptocurrency has launched. So pile on those mashed potatoes and an extra chicken wing. We're having a little bit of everything in episode number 92 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, ignition.
Who's bad? This is Laura Shin, host of the Unchained podcast and the brand new Unconfirmed podcast. You're listening to the Bad Crypto Podcast. Stay bad.
Hello, all the people of the world. It's a beautiful, sunshiny day in the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, and there are rainbows and unicorns and sparkly things.
I don't know what kind of crazy world you live in, but I'm in Kansas City. It is icy. It is cold. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
You got no imagination, Mr. Travis, right? Need to get you an imagination.
You know what? I think you would be a great Willy Wonka because you are a little wonky.
You know what? Willy Wonka is one of my heroes, and I am still upset that they remade that film with the pathetic Willy Wonka as acted by Johnny Depp. Nobody can outdo Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and they turned him into a pathetic creature in the remake. So all of y'all parents that took your kids to see that remake, shame on you. I'm Wonka shaming you. You have to now.
You are going to offend like maybe two people.
You have
like Johnny Depp.
Yeah, you have to go watch the original version again, even if the boat scene creeps you out.
Be a world of pure imagination.
Yeah, that. Speaking of imagination, you know, I'm a gamer and have been for my whole life. I know you're not. One of the games that I play, Travis, is called Overwatch. Many of you know it, and you're probably going, "Oh, what do you main?" I main Junkrat.
No, this is hilarious, guys. This is hilarious. I gotta give this to Mr. Jolcom. This is good stuff. You're gonna like.
This is a massively multiplayer shoot 'em up game that it was released by Blizzard Entertainment, and there's different characters to pick from, but it's a team-based game. So when you're in the game, you're matched up with 5 other players that are on your team, and you can chat with them as you're playing to kind of give shout outs and directions and all that. So I'm playing Overwatch, which, by the way, as of last October, had 35 million players around the world. Okay. That was
35 million
as of last October. So I'm sure it's even bigger now.
That's almost as many listeners as Bad Crypto has.
Yeah, almost. And so I'm talking to my team, and this guy writes in the chat room, one of the guys talking sounds like a guy who does a podcast for crypto. And, and I spoke. He wasn't talking. He just typed that. And I saw that. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I said, "Oh, which podcast?" And he writes, "Bad Crypto." And I said, "Yep, it's me." So I captured a screenshot of it. If you want to see the chat, it's in the show notes at badcryptopodcast.com, badco.in/092, because that's secret code for episode 92. So you never know.
Now, you didn't mess with the guy at all? You didn't be all like, "Stay bad" or
I did.
"Magical internet money"? You didn't do it?
We played a few songs together and we played a few games together. And when he said he had to go, I said, "Stay bad." And he laughed. So if that was you, then, we're actually friends now in the Blizzard app. So I'm sure I'll probably play with him again, whoever he is. But that was
good. You guys are now dating, going steady?
It was super fun. Super fun. Oh, we got some other news, Travis. The Zilla app has been a sponsor of the show for several months, and many of you are waiting for the app to come out. You know that they've had some problems with the App Store, and they've done an end around. And if you go to the show notes, there's links there, but on the Telegram channel, it's telegram.com/Zilla_app, or go to our show notes for the link to the video. They have managed to get the app into the test flight program, which is an end around way of getting it into the app store. So those of you that are in a location where it's available, you can actually go now and try the Zilla app and let them know what you think.
Yeah, that's great. Sometimes you got to do an end around. You know what? That's one of the reasons why I think blockchain is so important. You have companies, centralized companies like Apple, who is like, no, you can't get onto our platform because you're not cool enough. We don't like it or whatever. So, it's like, there needs to be a blockchain iOS competitor.
It's like, Mr. Travis, right? Also, let's talk about our other sponsor, the folks at Staff Virtual, who know that when you've got a company and it's growing quick, one of the hardest things to do is to keep up with your customer support. I mean, fast growth is awesome, but usually companies are not ready for the type of growth, that they're going to have if they're super successful. And who ends up suffering? The customers.
It can be a little painful when you grow too fast, right?
Yeah, growing pains, indeed. I think there was a TV show about that. Mike Seaver.
Mike Seaver, all those guys. Yeah. So Staff Virtual, they've been instrumental with some other crypto companies that have launched their pre-sale, and they help out with some brand awareness stuff, but most importantly, the customer support. And so if you are doing an ICO, if you have a crypto company, if you have an exchange, if you're if you have a DApp, if you're building on a blockchain, or you are a blockchain company, or you deal with blockchain at all or crypto at all, you need to be thinking about your long-term customer support needs. And staffvirtual.com can help you with that.
You need to be thinking about that, people. Be thinking about it.
Bad Crypto Inbox. You got mail.
All right, we got a comment and a question from Gary McEwen. He says, hey, guys, liking the podcast. Not really loving it, but liking it. He likes that it's daily since the crypto craze is so fast changing. Keep it up. I am a regretful noob. My only claim to almost Lambo status is reading about Bitcoin in a Wired magazine back in 2010, 2011. I looked into it, but passed. My question for you guys, what in your estimation is the breakdown of people in Bitcoin correlating to when they entered? It would seem to me that the more that got in early would have a much stronger resolve in hodling through dips than if the numbers were more skewed towards later entry. Thanks. Hope this makes the show. Gary, it made the show.
It made the show. Yay, Gary. It's an interesting question, and I've got some thoughts on this. There's a number of people that I've spoken with that got in early that sold. When they got in at $10 and they saw it go to 100, they're like, I'm out. But then there's others that hodled a portion and kept it. I don't know that there's a chart of that, but I would imagine that a lot of the people that bought in the second half of last year are probably hodling still, especially those that bought at a price higher than what it is right now.
Well, imagine some of those people got in when it was like sub $1 or sub $10, and then it went all the way up to like what, $1,100, $1,200 or something. Like if you didn't sell some, then you were a fool. But then maybe not. But here's the thing: is if everybody was hodling, then it would have never have had any wide distribution because nobody could have ever gotten their hands on any of it. So, that's one of those things is even though, you missed out in 2010, 2011. Yeah, a lot of people did. We missed out, but it's one of those things is if we hadn't had those 10,000 Bitcoin for the pizzas, and if we hadn't have been, and if, the Silk Road hadn't happened and people utilizing Bitcoin, and if Visa and MasterCard and those banks hadn't have blocked WikiLeaks, Bitcoin might not have proliferated as it has because it needed to be distributed. More people needed to have it. And if just a few people held it, then it wouldn't have ever got that mainstream adoption that we're seeing today.
Yep. And speaking of having Bitcoin, the government's got a little bit of it. Let's go to our news. What is the United States government doing with a stack of Bitcoin, Travis?
Well, you know what? There are several different organizations within the U.S. government that, arrest certain people for certain things. And there was a gentleman, Alexandra Kazis. He hung himself in a Thai jail cell back in July, and he had all these villas and Lamborghinis. He had lots of Lambos and Porsches, huge bank accounts. he allegedly was operating Alphabay, which is another one of those black market websites for drugs and weapons and other sort of contraband things, and just things that were just maybe not necessarily mainstream. And apparently there was some internet wallets there that were holding millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that is now the property of the U.S. Justice Department.
Mm-hmm. And they're auctioning them off. They don't want to crash the market, but they initially did some auctions back in 2014 and 15 because they seized the Bitcoin from Ross Ulbricht, the Silk Road.
I think they had some stuff with Mt. Gox too, or something, didn't they? They did another auction back then. I know that's how Tim Draper bought a lot of his cryptos.
Right. Well, what's interesting about this is in four auctions between June 2014 and November 2015, the U.S. Marshals sold the Silk Road Bitcoins at an average price of $379. So they actually could have, hodled them and made a bit more.
They would have only hodled, but they don't know much about this. So I wonder how many cryptos are available in this whole thing. So looks like 3,813 Bitcoins are available for auction here coming up. And the required deposit to participate in the auction is $200,000. And so there's another auction out there, some cryptos. I guess you can go to it, forfeiture.gov. And take a look at it and see if there's an auction you want to join.
Yep. And this story and the others you'll find in the show notes. This one is particularly interesting. A Japanese exchange called Zaif, Z-A-I-F, launched. I think it's pretty recent. I'm not sure when it happened, but they had a little bit of a glitch that happened recently. And the cryptocurrency known as Japanese Bitcoin was accidentally priced at, should we say, $0. And one customer saw that and he purchased 2,200 trillion yen worth of Bitcoin and he tried to cash it out. That's about $20 trillion. And since the market cap of Bitcoin is about 183 billion, it probably confused some traders and obviously didn't happen.
That reminds me of whenever, I have the Exodus wallet, and one day in my Exodus wallet, it said I had 49 Bitcoin in there. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, there's my lost Bitcoin from way back in the day. Exodus found it. And then I was like, I am going to send that to my other wallet real quick. And then those transactions failed. I did not have 49 extra Bitcoin in my Exodus wallet. It was just it was a glitch and I was sad.
It was a ruse. I'm looking at this article. It's on uprocks.com, a site that I normally wouldn't go to, but I found the story here and there's one comment on the piece, and it says, a Bitcoin is worth 2 unicorn farts, if I remember right, a new way to scam dummies out of their money. I kind of want to, make a note of that one.
2 unicorn farts because, is it 2 separate unicorns and they each farted? Because a unicorn is worth a substantial amount of money if you have one. And if you have 2 of them.
And they're farts.
That's pretty impressive.
Bottle that.
And they fart simultaneously? That is pretty rare.
Oh my goodness. Next story up is actually on the NewYorkTimes.com website, and it's about Venezuela. We've been watching here from a distance because they are in South America, and witnessing what is called one of the most severe economic collapses of modern times. The government is completely socialist, and they've gone from one of the wealthiest nations to a country where kids are dying of hunger. There's scarcity of food, scarcity of medicine. The crime is up like crazy. Their public services have collapsed. People are fleeing the country. And so they have started a new digital currency, which we have talked about on the show before. And it's officially rolled out. It's called the Petro.
Yeah. And I have a challenge with this one because, Nicolas Maduro, the president there, is sort of like a socialist dictator in a way. Like he's run that country down to the ground. I don't know how, when you have as many natural resources as Venezuela has, and it's a beautiful country, right? I mean, there's so much beautiful land and beaches and just so much oil. They have one of the largest oil reserves in the world. And for their country to not have gasoline for their citizens, not have food, and then just this huge economic financial crisis that has happened as a result of that. But yet this guy, this Maduro administration doesn't get booted out, and somehow they're able to strong harm the people, and he just keeps on doing business as usual. Now, this is interesting because they are this new petro currency is backed by the nation's vast their petro reserves, their oil reserves. And so not only has he ruined their present economy, now he has assetized and tokenized their petroleum that's underground, added value to that, and is now utilizing the value of the in-ground petroleum and potentially utilizing future wealth and resources of future generations of Venezuela. And personally, I don't think he should be able to do this.
Well, they're in the pre-sale right now of this. So I don't know who can participate in this, but the website is linked in the show notes, but it's www.elpetro.gov.ve. Is the place to find it. Again, there's a link in the show notes if you want to see. I don't know who can participate in this, but I don't know that I put much faith. I think some people are going to get wealthy here. I just don't know if it's going to be the Venezuelans.
Probably members of the Maduro administration, but I'm not a socialist government dictator advisor, so I don't know. I'm just talking out of my butt here.
It's amazing how you do that. So we're back to the unicorn farts again. Is that what you're saying? Last piece of news isn't really a news story. It's more just interesting information. It was published in marketwatch.com back in November of last year. And the title of the story by Sue Cheng is "Here's All the Money in the World in One Chart." And they made an infographic. The Money Project made an infographic that has a visualization that shows you with these little squares, the world's supply of silver, cryptocurrency, the biggest companies, the richest people. And then it goes to show you all currency, all gold, all stocks. What you see from this chart is how small of the world's money supply cryptocurrency really is. I mean, it is so tiny. And this just reminds me again that we are World Wide Web 1996, 1997 in terms of where we are in the time machine. And my personal belief, though I am not a financial advisor, is that this thing has a long way to go. You guys got to go check out this chart.
Yeah. And, go to that article, right click the thing, and then open the image into a new tab. And then it will open up into a new tab, and then click on it, and it will zoom in all the way. Because if you just try to see it when it's in that article view where it's only 600 pixels wide, you can't actually read the whole thing. But it blows me away that the total value of all the above ground silver is around $17 billion. And that's the smallest one right there. $17 billion. And cryptocurrency at the time in late November when this happened, I guess the total market cap at the time was around, 150 billion. So those numbers, the block sizes have changed a little bit, but not too much when you look and see all the different size of things. And actually, when crypto got all the way up to $840 billion, it would be bigger than Apple right there. It would have been a little bit bigger than that. And so you can kind of get a general idea. And then when you scroll down and you see, oh, here's the Federal Reserve Bank's balance sheet. Oh, here's all the currency in the world. And here's all the gold worth 7.7 trillion. And here's all the stock markets worth 73 trillion. And here's the global money supply, and broad money, and then global debt, and then derivatives, and then global real estate, and then all of that stuff there. And you're scrolling. And so basically the high end estimate for the value of all derivative contracts is $1.2 trillion. $1.2 quadrillion. And you keep scrolling. And then that's a lot. And then you look at what Bitcoin is right now. It is nothing. And so are you late in the game for Bitcoin, Mr. Joel Comm? Is this too late for the cryptos?
My personal belief is no, that blockchain technology is here to stay. Whether or not Bitcoin is going to be the predominant one or not, the jury's still out. We'll see. But I'm in for the long haul. I'm hodling. I'm not putting all of my money in it. I don't think that that's wise. I think, having a little here and a little there and different places is, again, not a financial advisor, but I'm advising myself to do that. I can advise myself, right?
We are not financial advisors, but we are marketing advisors, Mr. Joel Comm.
Indeed, we are. In fact, we're super pleased to be bringing you a company that we are on the advisory board for in our feature segment today. So all aboard. It's time for some ship chain. You know, Mr. Travis Wright, tracking stuff is difficult. You ever tried to track your stuff from one place to another?
You know, I have with, so if you ship something via UPS or, USPS or FedEx, they'll send you a little tracking code and you click on the little button and it kind of shows you it's somewhere. You don't quite know exactly where, but it's somewhere. You don't always know when you're going to get it. You kind of get a general idea, but yeah, it's important to be able to track that stuff.
And now multiply the complexity in just one simple delivery across the entire supply chain, right? Where you've got something that is leaving the factory and has got to go through these different hubs to finally arrive at a customer doorstep. And it's kind of a mess. And that's why we have guests with us today that intend to solve that problem. They are two of the principals from ShipChain, ShipChain.io, that you've heard us talk about before. Their names are John Monarch, who is the CEO, and Brian D. Evans, who is the CMO. But heretofore, we're just going to drop the D because, who really needs it? And we're glad to have you guys with us here today. Welcome to Bad Crypto.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
It's always funny when you have, two guests on the show at the same time because they're wondering who's going to talk first. Am I going to step on each other? So I want you guys to just fight, just battle it out.
Yeah, we're used to that. That's how companies go, right?
Now, full disclosure before we jump into this interview, you've heard us guys tell you before that both Mr. Travis Wright and myself are advisors on ShipChain. This is a project that we got introduced to several months ago, and we're on the advisory team prior to the ICO. And you know what that means, Mr. Travis Wright, as advisors. You know what we get?
We were put in the white paper, amongst other things.
Yeah, but that's nice. I've been in papers before, but what else do we get?
We got some cryptos.
We get some tokens. That's right. And anybody who's an advisor in any project, they're compensated to do that. So this is not really a sponsored interview like an ICO spotlight. We're just telling you that we're part of this team. At the same time, even though we are advisors to ShipChain and other companies, we actually don't make any recommendations. We told you we wouldn't, and we're still not going to recommend. What we are going to recommend is that you take what you've heard and go do your own due diligence.
That is for true. And one of the things about that, whenever we started chatting about crypto and blockchain originally, Joel, one of the things that, we sort of levitated towards was supply chain, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's so many different things. There's all these different assets. You have to record and transfer all these assets. There's pallets and trailers and containers. They're moving between all these various different supply chain nodes. You have to track and purchase orders and change orders and all these other documents and then all these certifications and all these. It's just perfect for the blockchain. And so when ShipChain came to us and we were chatting with them and we met with the team, we were like, oh my gosh, this sounds like an interesting project that we could put our names behind, and we're glad we did.
Yeah. So, John, you're the CEO and this vision, is yours. So share a little bit about this entire global economy that we're dealing with and what the problem is in shipping and logistics.
So really the shipping industry is one of the biggest industries that most people know, I would say almost nothing about. In the United States, it's well over $1.5 trillion worth of value and is about 10% of our GDP. Globally, it's close to $10 trillion right now and is expected by 2022 to grow up to about $15 trillion worth of transactional value per year. It employs something like 1 out of every 8 to 1 out of every 10 people in the United States, be it through working for shipping warehouses, for carriers, for, cargo groups and airlines, truckers, things like that. So it's surprisingly large and just people don't seem to know enough about it. And they really, it moves everything, especially as we move into the economy of, everything being delivered to the home, for instance.
The crazy thing about the industry that most people don't realize when you think about those numbers, it's arguably the biggest industry in the world. You could argue that it's the biggest or the top two. Really?
I don't want to argue. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah. Now, so you guys have, been building out the platform for a while now. I think we had our first conversation. Maybe it was back in October, maybe before that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but you guys have been working on the platform. And if you would maybe talk a little bit, tell the audience about how far along is the development of the platform currently?
Yeah, definitely. So we currently have track and trace active on blockchain. We have been, testing internally with hardware devices that are connected to GPS and the cell phone network, and the ability to track vehicles that are moving things and record all of that information to blockchain. It's very interesting to watch that process. And as we go along, doing things like adding more information, will becoming, sensors, temperature tracking, things of that nature. But right now we do have that track and trace active and working.
Oh, we're launching a pilot program with Purdue Farms actually pretty soon. Purdue Farms is the largest organic chicken distributor in the United States. If you've ever been to a grocery store in the U.S., you'd have seen Purdue Farms chicken. So they're one of our first pilot program partners to actually test out the platform.
And I don't know about you guys, but we love chicken here at
I do. Everything tastes like chicken, especially chicken. There's a lot of content on the site at shipchange.io, but what I'm looking at here to help understand what's helped me to grasp the problem and how ShipChain intends to solve this is a chart that talks about the old way and the new way. And so I'm going to read the old way, and I want you to talk about the new way for each one of these. And we kind of referred to the first one, which is port tracking. You said that's track and trace, right? So what is track and trace?
So track and trace is the ability to have that visibility into the movement of a product or any sort of shipment. So you need to see where things are, where they've been, and having that information available too. And even in today, we've got a lot of advanced tracking systems out there, but nothing's been truly unified. So that visibility is a bit lacking currently.
And then you've got here that there's no accountability the way things are now. In fact, you have a statistic here. It says the FBI estimates that cargo theft causes an annual loss within the U.S. of about $30 billion per year, with an average theft value of $190,000. So how does this get fixed?
So the ability on blockchain to have that accountability and have that, immutable ledger of information and who handled the transactions, where the handoffs were, things of that nature. Because right now, most of that theft happens really in the handoff of product. Sometimes a truck will pull up and it's a fraudulent pickup. It looks real. It seems like it's real, and they're just saying, "Hey, I'm picking up these 2 pallets." It's and it might not be the real carrier, even though they identify it as that. Sometimes even in traditional, parcel shipments, for instance, it looks like it got handed off between, say, if it's like a SurePost type of setup, which is UPS to USPS handoff. Sometimes it looks like it got handed off, but then all of a sudden the Postal Service will say, "Well, we never got it." UPS will say, "Well, we gave it to you," and no one takes credit for the problem there.
I'm pretty sure it was Tony Soprano. I've seen that show. And it's kind of what they do. You might want to look into that.
Yeah, the industry is literally so outdated that in many cases they use paper logs. So they'll have you check off a box saying, "Oh, did you get there by 7 p.m.?" And they have some guy at the warehouse check it off, and he got there actually at 8:30. Or in some cases, they're speeding to the location to get an extra delivery in that day so they can make some more money or whatever. So another benefit of ShipChain is that they'll be incentivized to follow the rules, like to get, not break the speed limit. There'll be an incentive program with tokens for that.
Now, what about the middlemen? I know there's the middleman markup a lot of times in this whole space. There's these brokers acting as gatekeepers for the industry. They charge pretty substantial amounts sometimes just to be in the middle. How are you guys going to solve that?
So we want to decentralize the marketplace and allow for the carriers and the independent drivers, large carriers, even ocean liners, rail, air, et cetera, to be linked directly with the people who want to ship their goods. That way the shippers have more of a choice in what their service level is, where things are going, how it's being shipped, et cetera, while avoiding that extra markup.
And the final component of the old way versus new way of doing things is the communication is incredibly fractured. You mentioned that a lot of logs are still done on paper, which I'm sure means that communication between carriers has got to be really challenging. So how do we fix that?
Exactly. And having everyone unified on a singular blockchain platform allows for interoperability and intercommunication between different carriers and shippers while still offering that encrypted protection of the blockchain itself. So your transactions are private, but they're still publicly validated. So that way everyone can see, okay, well, a transaction happened, but only you as a party to that shipment can see as the carrier, the shipper, et cetera, can verify it. So it's all stored publicly on the blockchain, but still safe.
The industry is actually so fragmented that in many cases, well, for example, one of our advisors, Kevin Harrington, who's sold like $6 billion worth of product or something insane like that, he was saying that he has to, when he would send something from China to the US, he'd be working with brokers that have brokers for their brokers. And then he'd have to work with 6 different systems. He'd have no idea where his stuff is. It was a huge fiasco every single time. So it is a archaic, crazy system the way it works now with all these different platforms people have to use. And then literally brokers have brokers. It's insane.
My brokers call your brokers, and then that'd be great. Let me ask you this now, just for the sake for our audience. If you could talk about your blockchain, are you building this on an existing blockchain? Did you fork off of another blockchain? Are you building your own blockchain? And then you also have side chains. Is there a way that you could maybe explain that?
Yeah, definitely. So we are building on top of the Ethereum platform. We see that as the most publicly validated and well-tested smart contract platform currently in existence. There are, we keep our eyes on a lot of different technologies, but we do prefer Ethereum. Regarding side chains, that is something that we're planning on in the long term, and that's having off-chain, even if it's not a side chain specifically, IPFS, things like that, off-chain, but still publicly validated, where the transaction occurs on the main blockchain, but any sort of data, because data is very expensive to store on Ethereum, or any public blockchain for that matter, it's better to store all of that very specific information either on a side chain or on IPFS, things like that. So that way it's still validated publicly, but it costs less to actually process that transaction.
Yeah, because people will often say to us, oh, well, Ethereum's slow, or it can be slow in some cases. But really a lot of that, that a lot of the bulk of the data will be happening, the transactions happening on that, off-chain, side-chain solution.
You guys created an ERC20 token. It's called the SHIP token. And maybe you could explain how the token is used in the platform.
Right. So the token is actually serves multiple purposes within the platform itself. One is that it is required for membership. So to be able to use the SHIP platform, the SHIP chain platform, you are required to hold the token itself. Along with that, it can be used as a transactional token for shipping freight, as well as the third and probably the biggest one I see, and that was actually the initial reason we had started discussing this, was the incentive platform for drivers, for instance, because there's a massive shortage of truck drivers in the United States that is currently exceeding 100,000 and is expected to currently grow by, up to 200,000 by the next 4 years. So because there aren't enough truck drivers, what we want to do, and turnover is very high, is use that token as a method of incentivizing the truck drivers to, not only just be a part of the platform, but also, like Brian said earlier, safe driving, following the speed limit, on-time deliveries, even using less fuel, lower idle times, et cetera.
That was one question that I wanted to ask about, was those driving rewards, because I figured our audience would find that interesting. But then also and I don't mean to cut you off, Brian, but I want to throw this in there, and maybe you can address this. What happens when we get to these autonomous driving vehicles, right? And these autonomous driving truckers, which is a few years away.
Yeah, we thought of that too. So let me just go back for 1 second, because this is an important point with the token. Another reason why the token is so important, especially an ERC20 token, are the smart contracts, right? Ethereum basically is, the masters of smart contracts. And in their initial white paper, they mentioned that the freight and logistics industry could be one of the biggest beneficiaries of smart contracts. The platform essentially has all these smart contracts happening simultaneously that store this information and, release tokens or currency when different actions are completed. So that's a key component of this whole thing too, the smart contracts.
People are probably wondering, how do they participate in this ICO? And I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The bad news is that you can't. The good news is the company rate. Why don't you guys talk about the private investments and why there's no ICO?
So really, it was a combination of factors, and we had such a high interest in our pre-sale from groups, as well as, I would say over, 60 to 70% of people who had interest in joining into the token sale were people from the freight and logistics industry, which was very exciting to us that, we were validated by our industry peers and people who actually will be using the platform. And really, it was that combination of factors of heavy interest in the pre-sale, as well as, the value of Ethereum going up, for instance, contributed to it. And we wanted to set ourselves aside as running this the right way. So we didn't want to take too much or exceed, what we had promised as our cap. So we stuck to it.
Yeah, we had just a ton of interest from people in the industry, as John mentioned. We had a big article go up on TechCrunch and Mashable and things like that, talking about how, different players in the Blockchain Trucking Alliance, which we're also part of as well, we're getting into the space. So we just had a lot of outreach from people in the industry. So we canceled that public sale. We didn't do the public sale, but we just did it all privately.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of interest.
Well, the goal is to raise money and, so that you can develop the platform, and congratulations on doing that successfully.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And let's, if we could, touch base on that autonomous driving vehicle thing, because I think that, knowing 5G and all this stuff is coming, down the road, it's one of those things that I think people are interested in. Like, when is this self-driving truck thing coming? And is that something that we need to be thinking about already?
So we took that into account, and we've been discussing that internally. And we see that, even with self-driving and autonomous vehicles, shipments still need to be tracked and validated. That is, a very important aspect of the actual delivery and shipping process itself, regardless of if it's a self-driving or a driver. On top of that, however, I personally, at least my view is that the United States Department of Transportation is not going to allow fully autonomous freight vehicles to be the majority right now. It's going to be in testing, but I just can't foresee them in the near future, maybe the next 10 years or so, beyond that even, allowing a tanker truck full of gasoline driving down the highway by itself with nobody on it. So. Yeah,
I hope not. And if it does, we'll have a plan for it. But I don't think
when self-driving Lambo. That's what. No, you can tell a lot about interest in various projects based on the popularity of a Telegram. And I just jumped over to the Telegram, and you've got almost 37,000 people there. And you guys, you did an airdrop, right, of tokens?
Yes, we did.
Is that closed? Or is that still accessible?
Yeah, the airdrop registration is closed. We do have additional tokens that we will most likely airdrop in the future, so people can still join our Telegram. It's just ship chain. They can still join it, and then in the future we will most likely be doing more airdrops. But the current one is closed. Yes,
we like those airdrops, Travis.
That's good stuff. I know that the audience wants to know about the team. Now, you have amazing advisors on your team with Joel.
The best
and Travis.
Advisors.
We're very humble. We're the most humble people. Nobody's more humble than us. And we'd like for you to talk about the team. Like, what experience do you guys have in logistics and shipping? And the insights that you guys have gathered maybe over your collective careers to be able to nail this project.
So my background is with my fulfillment center. I came from actually working in the shipping industry and working with e-commerce shippers. And it's very interesting working between like manufacturers versus working with people who run their own like Shopify stores, for instance, are very different. And the process of shipping is not that easy. And so it really came from a point of, well, there's a lot of complexity to this and we want to simplify it, but also there's a lot of issues with the tracking that I've seen my clients have. And how can we rectify that and make it more visible for them in the entire process?
Yeah, we also recruited Roger Crook, who's the former CEO at DHL. So he literally has worked for DHL since 1988. He's retired now, which allows him to work with us, but we recruited some real legends in the space. So that's that insight and experience drastically helped us and just opened doors to different companies. Also, our CTO. Our CTO is just, to me, one of those savant level developers that really gets blockchain on a really intimate level. A lot of intricacies where, a lot of developers that are just learning this stuff wouldn't understand yet. He's like a Vitalik type. He just really, really gets it.
Yeah, Lee is one of the smartest people I've ever talked to. He's definitely tapped into the matrix at this point.
And you can always trust a guy with the last name Crook, I found.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of this too is the fact that, Sam Rusani, for example, who's our chief revenue officer, if you look at the site, some of the companies he's worked with, just massive, huge companies, but really connecting to those big companies is really important, because for ShipChain, we can literally work with any company that physically, somebody told me one time that look in the room that you're in, pretty much everything in the room has been shipped at one point, right? So just about every business in almost every industry can use our platform. So connecting with those big brands and having people on that biz dev side that really truly get it and are able to open doors and make deals happen, that's going to be very valuable for us, because we can work with just about any company.
Well, John and Brian, we appreciate you joining us today. And I know that you can't tell us, if and when there will be exchanges. But, I know you have a big vision for this. So why don't we close out with kind of sharing that vision?
Definitely. And we'd really like to see the entire freight industry unified on a singular platform, so that it's really funny. I think the best way to put it is the way our CTO Lee says. We want monkeys to be using this to track the bananas that they're shipping after we're all long extinct. After Planet of the Apes happens, they're going to have to track stuff, and we want it to be on ShipChain. We want Elon Musk to track all his stuff going to Mars, for instance. So it's a big vision. It's a big project, but we think we have the right team to take it on.
Mars, when moon.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things, you really look at it, and that's one, when Joel and I were, having a conversation about that. If you're able to put and successfully do this, right, by putting shipping on the blockchain, you're going to have enhanced transparency. You're going to have greater scalability for the participants who are, utilizing this, better security in theory. Hopefully that maps out, and then increased innovation, because this is something that is definitely needed. Blockchain seems to be built, in my mind, for this type of operation. So best of luck to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Definitely appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
And thanks for having us.
Dude, I'm super excited about the future of blockchain. And it's not about the money. I've made money, I've lost money. Once you have enough money, then it's just, the good that you can do with it. I'm excited about how the world is changing, how crypto and blockchain is empowering people, and I think is going to benefit the most needy amongst us in the world.
Absolutely, Mr. Joel Comm. And I'm not motivated by money either. It's one of those things that you have money. It is. Most of us are truly slaves to the dollar bill. We have to have a certain amount to pay our rent or our mortgage and our food and our bills. And if not, you become homeless, and you got to have some money, but money is not the end game. The end game is doing good stuff, putting a dent in the universe, making the world a better place. As you like to say, do good stuff, while staying bad. I don't know how that works, but it's great in theory. But, these type of blockchain projects that are making things more transparent, they're making things more efficient. They are streamlining things and giving us more governance and more visibility into things. That's what's going to create a more and better free society, is those types of things. And so, I love this particular project, and I'm thinking that some of you guys out there will as well.
Exciting times we live in. Well, we're glad that you guys joined us again. Thank you so much for listening to the Bad Crypto Podcast and for being a citizen of the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. In our next episode, the one, the only John Stossel is going to be our guest. We've actually done the interview already, and I can tell you that it's pretty good. So watch for that one. And Mr. Travis Wright, why don't you give instructions to our citizens so they know what to do?
Yeah, so if you love the show, one thing we'd love for you to do is, maybe go on iTunes, Facebook, leave us a review. iTunes and Facebook, they really like that, because that helps them with their ranking and whatnot, so more people can discover our show. If you want to connect with us on, in the mastermind group, that would be wise. Go to badco.in/mastermind. And then also, one final thing is, we would love for you to stay bad.
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor. As people, and then it goes to show you all currency, all gold, all stocks, and it shows you the thing with your microphone is driving me crazy, dude.
Okay, I have it here. All right, there we go. I wasn't holding it because I wasn't talking. Go ahead.
Stop it.
Who's bad? Some people see money as a goal. Some see it as a pursuit. Others see it for the stuff it can buy. At Thrivent, we see it as a tool that can help you live a more fulfilling life. That's why we help millions of Christians be wise with money, with advice, insurance, banking, investments, and generosity. If you'd like to join us, visit Thrivent.com. Thrivent. Be wise with money.